梁歌制作，看红路，作者沈从文。第一节，晚上11点钟，半点钟前，我从另外一个地方归来，在离家不多远处。
Made of Lianggu, author of Looking at the Rainbow Record, Chen Kongwen. First section, 11th of the evening. At half an hour ago, I returned from another place, not far from home.
经过一个老式牌楼，见月光轻盈，十分感动，因此在牌楼下站了那么一会儿。那里大白天是个热闹菜市，夜中显得空阔而静寂。
After passing an old archway, I was very moved to see the clear moonlight, so I stood there a while. It is a lively vegetable market in broad daylight, and it seems empty and quiet at night.
空阔似乎扩张了我的感情，寂静却把压缩在一堆时间中那个无形无质的感情变成为一种有分量的东西。忽闻嗅到梅花清香，引我向空虚凝眸。
Huoku seems to have expanded my feelings, but silence turns the invisible and qualitative feeling compressed into a pile of time into something with weight. Suddenly I smelled the fragrance of plum blossoms, which led me to stare into the emptiness.
慢慢地走向那个空虚，于是我便进到了一个小小的庭院，一间素朴的房子中傍进一个火炉旁。在那个素朴小房子中，正散以梅花芳馥。
Slowly walking towards that emptiness, I entered a small courtyard, a simple house, next to a stove. In that simple little house, the fragrance of plum blossoms is scattering.
像是一个年夜，远近有各种火炮声在寒气中爆响。在绝对单独中，我开始阅读一本奇书。我谨谨慎慎翻开那本书的第一页，有个题词。
It was like a big shot, with all kinds of artillery sounds exploding in the cold air. In absolutely single, I started reading a wonderful book. I carefully opened the first page of the book and had an inscription.
写得明明白白，神在我们生命里。第二节，炉火矢炽，房中温暖如春天，使人想脱去一件较厚衣服，换上另外一件较薄的。
It is clearly written, God is in our lives. Version 2, the fire begins to burn, and the warmth in the room is like spring, making people want to take off a thicker piece of clothing. Change to another thinner one.
橘红色灯罩下的灯光，把小房中的墙壁、地毯和一些触目可见的事物全镀上一种与世隔绝的颜色，酿满一种与世隔绝的空气。
The lights under the orange-red lampshade plate all the walls, carpets and some visible things in the small room with an isolated color, making an isolated air.
镜窗边朱红漆条桌上，一个秋叶形件瓷碟子里放了个小小的黄色柠檬，因此空气中还有些柠檬馨香。窗帘已下垂。
On the vermilion lacquer table near the window, a small yellow lemon was placed in a porcelain plate with autumn leaves, so there was still a little lemon in the air. The curtains have sagged.
浅棕色的窗帘上会有粉彩花马，仿佛奔跃于房中人眼下。客人来到这个地方，已完全陷入于一种离奇的孤寂境界。不过只那么一会儿。
The light brown curtains are painted with pastel horses, as if they are leaping under the eyes of the person in the room. When the guest came to this place, he was completely trapped in a bizarre state of loneliness. but it's only for a while.
这境界即从客人心上消失了。原来主人不知何时轻轻悄悄走入房中，火炉对面大镜中现出一个人影子，白脸长眉，微笑中带来了些春天的虚息。
This state disappeared from the guest's heart. It turned out that the owner quietly walked into the room at some point, and a shadow appeared in the large glass opposite the stove. The white face and long eyebrows bring some spring breeze to the smile.
发辫边蓬蓬松松，几朵小兰花聚成一小簇，贴在有式样的白耳后，俨若向人招手。瞧，这个地位多得体，多美妙！手指长而柔，插入发髻时。
The hair is fluffy and the hair is covered with a few small blue flowers, which are attached to the style of white ears, as if waving to someone, "Look, this position is so decent and wonderful, finger length and soft, when inserted into the hairline."
那张微笑的脸便略为清澈，其实破坏了客人印象另一个寂静。真对不起，害你等得多闷损。不，我一点不。房中很暖和，很静，对于我。
The smiling face tilted slightly, starting to destroy another silence of the guest's impression. "I'm so sorry, I'm so bored and hurtful, no. I'm not at all. The room is very warm and quiet, for me."
真正是一种享受，微笑的脸消失了。火炉边椅子经轻轻的移动，在银红缎子坐垫上睡着的一只白鼻白爪小黑猫，不能再享受炉边的温暖。
It's really a pleasure. The smiling face disappeared. The chair next to the stove moved gently, and a little black cat with white nose and white claws that was sleeping on the silver-red satin cushion could no longer enjoy the warmth of the stove.
跳下了地，伸个懒腰，表示被驱逐的不合理，男同意慢慢地走开了。案桌上小方钟打打响着，短针尖在八字上。晚上8点钟。
He jumped off the ground and stretched, indicating that he was expelled unreasonable and he couldn't agree to walk away slowly. The little square clock on the desk was ringing, and the tip of the short needle was on the 8 characters. At 8 o'clock in the evening.
客人继续游目四主，重新看到窗帘上那个装饰用的一群小花马，用各种姿势驰骋。你这房里真暖和，简直是一个小温室。你觉得热吗？
The guests continued to visit and watched the crowd of small petals used for decoration on the curtains again, galloping in various postures. Your room is so warm, it's simply a small greenhouse. Do you think it's hot?
衣穿得太厚。我打开一会儿窗子，客人本意只是赞美房中温暖舒适，并未嫌太热。这时节俭推开窗子，不好意思作声。窗外正飘降清雪。
The clothes were worn too thick. I'll open the window for a while. The guest's original intention was to praise the warmth and comfort in the room, and did not think it was too hot. At this time, I felt embarrassed to make a sound. Snow is falling outside the window.
窗开后，一片寒气和沙沙声从窗口涌入，窗子重新关上了。我也觉得热起来了，换件衣服去。主人离开房中一会儿。
After the window opened, a cold air and rustling sound poured in from the window. The window closed again. I feel hot too. Go change your clothes. The owner left the room for a while.
重新看那个窗帘上的花马，仿佛这些东西在奔月，因为重新在单独中。梅花很香，主人换了件绿罗袈衫，显得瘦了点，穿得太薄了。
Look at the flower horse on the curtain again. It seems that these things are leaping because they are in separate place again. The plum blossoms are very fragrant. The owner changed into a green silk shirt, making him look a little thinner. It's dressed too thin.
不怕冷吗？着凉可麻烦，要总是苦的，纵加上些糖，甜的不自然，不冷的。这一够厚了，还是7年前缝好，秋天从箱底里翻出，以为穿不得，想送给人。
Aren't you afraid of the cold? It can be troublesome to cause cold. The medicine is always bitter, and even if you add some sugar, it will be unnaturally sweet. It's not cold. This dress is thick enough. It was sewn 7 years ago. It was taken out from the bottom of the box in autumn. I thought I couldn't wear it, so I wanted to give it to someone.
想想看，送谁？自己试穿穿看罢，幕后还是送给了自己。侧面向炉取暖，一双小小手伸出坐向火姿势，风度异常优美。还来不及称赞，手已缩回翻翻衣角。
Think about it. Who will I give it to? I tried it on and saw it myself, and I gave it to myself in the end. When facing the stove, a pair of small hands stretched out toward the fire, with an extremely beautiful demeanor. Before I could praise my hands had retracted and flipped the corners of my clothes.
这个夹衣还是我自己缝的，我欢喜这种软条子罗，重重的，有个分量。是的，这个对于你特别相宜。材料分量重，和身体活泼轻盈对比，恰到好处。
I sewed this jacket myself. I like this soft strip, heavy and has a weight. Yes, this is especially suitable for you. The material is heavy and light, just right.
要说的完全都溶解在一个微笑里了。主人明白，只报以微笑。衣角向上翻转时，纤弱的双腿被属灰色薄薄丝袜子裹着。
All I have to say is dissolved in a smile. The master understood and only smiled. When the corner of the clothes was flipped upward, his slender legs were wrapped in thin rat gray stockings.
如一棵美丽的小白杨树，如一对光光的球杖，不，恰如一双理想的腿。这是一条路，由此导人想象走进天堂。天堂中景象素朴而离奇，一片青草。
Like a beautiful little poplar tree, like a pair of shiny ball sticks. No, just like an ideal pair of legs. This is a road which leads people to imagine getting closer to heaven. The scene in heaven is simple and bizarre, with a piece of green grass.
千绵绿芜，寂静无声，什么话也不说，于是用目光轻轻抚着那个微凸的踝骨，连小的足径、半圆的膝盖，一切都生长得恰到好处。
The green is green and silent. I didn't say anything, so I gently stroked the slightly convex ankle bone, the small shin, the semicircular knees with my eyes. Everything grew just right.
看来令人异常舒服， 而又稍稍纷乱，仿佛已感觉到这种目光和遐想行旅的轻微亵渎，因此一面便把衣角放下，紧紧地裹着膝部。
It seems extremely comfortable and slightly chaotic. It seemed as if I had felt this slight blasphemy of gaze and imagination of traveling, so I put down the corner of my clothes and wrapped it tightly around my knees.
轻地吁了一口气，你瞧我袜子好不好？颜色不大好，材料好。瘦的手在衣下摸着那袜子，似乎还接着说，材料好，裹在脚上，脚也好看多了，是不是？
He let out a sigh of relief. Look at my socks. The color is not good, the material is good. The thin hand touched the socks under the clothes, and seemed to continue saying, the material is good, it is wrapped around the feet, and the feet look much better, right?
天气一热，你们就省事多了。意思倒是热天你不穿袜子更好看，衣角富扬起一些，天热真省事。意思却在回答，大家都说我脚好看。
When the weather is hot, you will save a lot of trouble. It means, if you don't wear socks in hot weather, it looks better. The corner of the clothes was raised again. It's really easy to get hot. The meaning is to answer, everyone says my feet look good.
那里有什么好看？天热小姐们鞋子也简单，脚肿脚趾痛好看，年年换样子，费钱。你欢喜吗？任何国家一年把钱用到顶愚蠢各种事情上去。
What's good to look there? The shoes are simple as it is hot. The heel and toe are beautiful. It's a lot of money to change your appearance every year. Are you happy? Any country spends money on all kinds of stupid things in a year.
总是万万千千的话，年轻女孩子一年换2种皮鞋样子，费得了多少事？只要好看，怕什么费钱？一个皮鞋工厂的技师对于人类幸福的贡献。
There are always thousands of flowers. How much does it cost to change 2 leather shoes for a young girl a year? As long as you look good, what are you afraid of? A technician in a leather shoe factory contributes to human happiness.
并不比一个衣厂的技师不如，这个问题太深了，不是我能说话的。我倒像个野孩子，一到海边就只想脚踢沙子玩。我不怕人看，不怕人闻。
Nothing worse than an EE factory technician. This question is too deep, not something I can speak. I am like a wild child. When I get to the beach, I just want to kick the sand and play. I am not afraid of people watching or kissing.
可是得看地方来，今年新式浴衣肯定又和去年不同。你裸体比别的女人更好看，这种无声音的言语。
But it depends on the place. This year's new style yukata must be different from last year. You are naked and look better than other women. This kind of voiceless speech.
彼此之间都似乎能够从所说及的话领会得出，意思毫无错误。到这时节，主人笑笑，沉默了。一个聪明的女人的羞怯，照例是贞洁与情欲的混合。
Both of them seem to be able to understand from what they say and what they say, and the meaning is correct. At this time, the master smiled and fell silent. The shyness of a smart woman is, as usual, a mixture of chastity and lust.
微笑与沉默便包含了奖励和趋避的两种成分。主人轻轻地将脚尖举举，你有多少傻响头，我全知道。可是傻的并不十分讨人厌。
Smiling and silence include two elements, reward and avoidance. The master gently raised his toes. I know all the stupid things you are, but it is not very annoying.
脚又稍稍向里移，如已被吻过后有所逃避。够了，为什么老是这么傻？你想不出你走路时美到什么程度，不拘在什么地方，都代表快乐和健康。
The feet moved slightly inward again, as if they had been kissed and escaped. Enough, why are you always so stupid? You can't think of how beautiful you are when you walk. No matter where you are, it means happiness and health.
可是客人开口说的却是你喜欢爬山，还是在海滩边散步？我当然欢喜海，它可以解放我，也可以满足你。主人说的只是海边好玩得多。
But the guest said, Do you like climbing mountains or walking by the beach? Of course I am happy with the sea. It can liberate me and satisfy you. The host said, The sea is much more fun.
潮水退后，沙上湿湿的，冷冷的，光着脚走去，无拘无束，极有意思。我喜欢在沙子里发现那些美丽的蚌壳，美丽真是一种古怪东西，因为美令人崇拜。
After the tide recedes, the sand is wet and cold, and walks barefoot without restraint, which is very interesting. I like to find those beautiful clam shells in the sand. Beauty is such a weird thing. Because of beauty, it is adorable.
见之低头，发现美接近美，不仅仅使人愉快，并且使人严肃，因为俨然与神对面。对于你，这世界有多少古怪东西？你说笑话，你崇拜，低头。
He lowered his head when he saw it. Discovering Bowtai's proximity to beauty is not only pleasant, but also serious, because it is like opposite God. How many weird things are there in this world for you? You tell jokes, you worship, and bow your head.
不过是想起罢了，你并不当真会为我低头的。你就是个古怪东西，想想许多不端重的事，却从不做过一件失礼貌的事，很会保护你自己。是的。
Just remembering it. You don't take it seriously and will bow your head for me. You are just a weird thing. You think about many misconduct, but never do anything rude and are very good at protecting yourself. Yes.
我看到的都是别人疏忽了的，知道的好像都不是真的，居多且不同别人一样的。这可说是一种悲剧。譬如说
What I see is something that others have neglected, and what I know seems to be not true, mostly, and is different from others. This can be said to be a tragedy. For example,
你需要我那么有礼貌地接待你吗？就我知道的说来，你是奖励我做一点别的事情的，近来写了多少事？语气中稍微有点嘲讽，你成天写诗。
Do you need me to receive you so politely? As far as I know, you reward me for doing something else. How many poems have you written recently? The tone is a little sarcastic. You write poetry all day long.
热情消失在文字里去了，所以活下来就完全同一个正经绅士一样的过日子。我在写小说。 情感荒唐而夸饰，文字艳逸而不装。
The enthusiasm disappeared in the words, so after surviving, he lived like a serious gentleman. I am writing novels. The emotions are ridiculous and exaggerated, and the words are gorgeous but not majestic.
写一个荒唐而又浪漫的故事，独自在大雪中猎鹿，简直是奇迹，居然就捉住了一只鹿，正好像一篇童话。
It is a miracle to write a ridiculous and romantic story, hunting deer alone in the heavy snow, and it is simply a miracle that I actually caught a deer. It's like a fairy tale.
因为只有小孩子相信这是可能的一件真实事情，且将超越真实和虚实这类名词，去欣赏故事中所提及的一切，分享那个故事中人物的悲欢心境。
Because only children believe that this is a real thing that is possible, and will transcend nouns such as reality and decorate, appreciate everything mentioned in the story, and share the joys and sorrows of the characters in that story.
你看它就会明白，你生命并不缺少童话一般荒唐美丽的爱好，以及去接受生活中这种变故的准备。你无妨看看，不过也得小心。
You will understand when you look at it. Your life is not short of absurd and beautiful hobbies like fairy tales, and the preparation for accepting such changes in life. You can take a look, but you have to be careful.
主人好像完全理解客人那个意思，因此带着微笑说：“你故事写成了，是不是？让我看看好，让我从你故事上测验一下我的童心。”
The host seemed to fully understand the guest's meaning, so he said with a smile, "Your story has been written, right? Let me see. Let me test my childlike innocence from your story."
我自己还不知道是否尚有童心。客人说：“是的，我也想用你对于这个作品的态度和感想，测验一下我对于人性的理解能力。”
I don't know if I still have childlike innocence. The guest said, "Yes, I also want to use your attitude and feelings towards this work to test my ability to understand human nature."
平时我对于这种能力总觉得怀疑，可是许多人却称赞我这一点，我还缺少自信。主人因此低下头，一朵白荷花的低垂，来阅读那个荒唐故事。
I always feel skeptical about this ability, but many people praise me for this, and I still lack confidence. The owner lowered his head, a white flower drooping low, to read the absurd story.
在起始阅读前，似乎还担心客人的沉闷，所以间不久又抬起头瞥客人一眼，眼中有春天的风和夏天的云，也好受，也好看。客人于是说：“不要看我。”
Before starting reading, I seemed to be worried about the dullness of the guests, so I looked up and glanced at the guests soon. There are spring winds and summer clouds in your eyes, which are both pleasant and beautiful. The guest then said, "Don't look at me."
看那个故事吧，不许无理由生气着恼。我看你写的故事要慢慢的看。是的，这是一个故事，要慢慢的看，才看得懂。你意思是说
Let's see that story. Don't be angry and annoyed for no reason. I will read the story you wrote slowly. Yes, this is a story. You have to read it slowly before you can understand it. You mean?
因为故事写得太深，还是我为人太笨？ 都不是。我意思是，文字写得太会，和一般习惯不大相合。你知道。
Because the story is written too deeply, or am I too stupid? None of them. I mean the text is too obscure and doesn't match the general habit. You know.
大凡一种和习惯不大相合的思想行为，有时还被人看成十分危险，会出乱子的。好，我试一试看，能不能从这个作品发现一点什么。
Generally speaking, a kind of thought that is not very consistent with habits is sometimes regarded as very dangerous and will cause trouble. Okay, let me give it a try, and can I find something from this work?
于是主人静静地把那个故事看下去，客人也静静地看下去，看那个窗帘上的花马。马似乎奔跃于广漠无际一片轻无中消失了。
So the master quietly read the story. The guest also looked quietly, looking at the flower horse on the curtain. The horse seemed to leap into the vast desert and disappeared.
客人觉得需要那么一种对话来填补时间上的空虚。太美丽了。一个长得美丽的人，照例不大想得到由于这点美观引起人多少惆怅。
The guest felt that such a conversation was needed to fill the emptiness of time. So beautiful. As usual, a beautiful person doesn't want to get a lot of melancholy caused by this beauty.
也给人多少快乐。真的吗？你在说笑话罢了。你那么呆呆地看着我脚是什么意思？你表面老实，心中放肆。我知道你另外一时。
It also gives people a lot of happiness. Really? You're just telling a joke. What does it mean when you look at my feet so blankly? You are honest on the surface, but you are unrestrained in your heart. I know you are another moment.
曾经用目光吻过我的一身，但是你说的却是马化的很有趣味，好像要各处跑去。跑去的是你的心，如今又正在做这种行旅的温习。
I once kissed my whole body with my eyes, but what you said was, the horse is very interesting, as if you want to run everywhere. What is running to you is your heart. Now I am doing this kind of travel review again.
说起这事时，我为你有点羞惭，然而我并不怕什么。我早知道你不会做出什么真正吓人的行为，你能够做的就只是这种漫游。
I feel a little ashamed of you when I talk about this, but I am not afraid of anything. I knew you wouldn't do anything really scary. All you can do is this kind of roaming.
仿佛第一个旅行家进到了另外一个种族宗教大庙里，无目的的游览，因此而比带着一点惶恐敬佩之忱。
It seemed as if the first traveler entered another ethnic and religious temple and visited aimlessly, so he had a little fear and admiration.
因为你同时还有犯罪不敬感在心上占绝大势力。是的，你猜想的毫无错误。我要闻你的脚趾和脚掌、膝和腿，以及你那个说来害羞的地方。
Because you also have a sense of impurity in your heart that you have a great influence. Yes, there is no error in your guess. I'm going to kiss your toes and soles, your knees and legs, and the place you say is shy.
我要停顿在你一身这里或那里。你应当懂得我的期望，如何诚实，如何不自私。 我什么都懂，只不懂你为什么只那么想，不那么做。
I'm going to pause in you here or there. You should understand my expectations, how honest and not selfish. I know everything, but I don't understand why you just think so and don't do that.
房中只两人，院外寂静，唯闻微雪飘窗。见或有松树上积雪下堕，声音也很轻。客人仿佛听到彼此的话语，其实听到的只是自己的心跳。
There were only 2 people in the room, and there was a quiet outside the courtyard. Only the drifting window was heard. Sometimes there may be snow on pine trees, and the sound is also very light. The guests seemed to hear each other's words, but in fact they only heard their own heartbeat.
炉火已渐赤，主人一面阅读故事，一面把脚尖微触地板，好像在指示客人，请从这里开始。我不怕你，你不管如何胡闹，也不怕你。
The fire is getting burning. As the owner read the story, he slightly touched the floor with his toes, as if instructing the guest, please start from here. I'm not afraid of you. No matter how you make a fuss, you're not afraid of you.
我知道你要做些什么事，有多少傻处，慌慌张张处，主人发柔而黑，颈白如须臾可知，眉眼冰媚迎人，颊边带有一小小圆窝，胸部微凸。
I know what you are going to do, how many stupid things you are, and what you are in a panic. The owner's hair is soft and black, his neck is as white as jade carved with fat, his eyebrows and eyes are charming, and there is a small round vortex on his cheeks, and his chest is slightly convex.
衣也许稍微厚了一点，目光吻着发间，发光如修，柔如丝绸，吻着白额，秀眼微闭，吻着颊，一种不知名的芳香中人欲醉，吻着颈部。
The clothes may be a little thicker. The eyes kissed the hair, glowing like lacquer and soft as silk. Kissing his white forehead, his beautiful eyes closed slightly. Kissing the cheek, an unknown fragrance makes people want to be drunk. Kissing the neck.
似乎吸取了一个小小红印，吻着胸脯，左边右边，衣的确稍厚了一点，因此说道：“咦，你那么近着炉子，不热吗？”我不怕热，我怕脸。说着头也不抬。
It seems that a small red mark has been absorbed. Kissing his chest, the left and right sides, his clothes were indeed a little thicker. Therefore, he said, you are so close to the stove, isn't it hot? I'm not afraid of heat, I'm afraid of pity. He said that, without raising his head.
咕咕地笑起来。我是个猫，一只好看不喜动的暹罗猫，一到火炉边就不大想走动。平日一个人常整天坐在这里，什么也不想，也不做。
Gurgling smiled. I am a cat, a beautiful Siamese cat who doesn't like to move. When I get to the stove, I don't want to walk around. I often sit here alone all day long, thinking about nothing or doing nothing.
说时又咕咕地笑着。文章看到什么地方？我看到那只鹿站在那个风雪所不及的孤独高岩上，眼睛光光地望着另一方，自以为十分安全。
He smiled gurglingly when he said that. Where did the article see? I saw the deer standing on the lonely high rock that was beyond the reach of the wind and snow, looking at the other side with bright eyes, thinking that it was very safe.
想不到那个打猎的人已经慢慢地向他走去。那猎人满以为伸一手就可捉住他那只瘦瘦的后脚，他还闭了一只眼睛去欣赏那鹿角上的绒毛。
I didn't expect that the hunter had already walked towards it slowly. The hunter thought that he could catch its thin hind feet with one hand, and he closed his eyes to admire the fur on the deer's feet.
正向十分从容，你描写的简直可笑，想象不真，美丽可不真实，请你看下去，看完后再批评。看下去，笑容逐渐收敛了。
Just like it's very calm. You describe it so ridiculously, and you can't imagine it. Beautiful, not real. Please keep watching. Criticize after reading it. After watching, his smile gradually calmed down.
他知道他已看到另一个篇章，描写那母鹿身体另外一部分时，那温柔兽物如何近于一个人。
He knew she had seen another chapter. Describe how the gentle beast is close to a person when the other part of the doe's body is.
那母鹿因新的爱情从目光中流出的温柔，更显得如何生动而富有人性。他把那几页文章搁到膝盖上，轻轻吁了一口气。
The tenderness flowing from the eyes of the doe is vividly written and humane. She put those pages on her knees and let out a sigh of relief.
好像脚上的一只袜子已被客人用文字解去，白足如霜。好像听到客人低声地说：“你不以为亵渎，我喜欢看它。你不生气，我还将用嘴唇去吻它。”
It seemed that a sock on the foot had been removed by the guest in words, and his feet were as white as frost. It seems that I heard the guest whisper, "You don't think it's blasphemy? I like to see it. You don't get angry. I will kiss it with my lips."
我还要沿那个白杨路行去，到我应当到的地方歇气。我要到那个有荫蔽处，转弯抹角处，小井泉边，茂草千绵，是以白杨放牧处。总之
I also have to walk along the poplar road and rest at the place I should go. I want to go to the shaded place, the corners, the small well spring. The lush grass is suitable for Aries to grazing. Anyway.
我将一切照那个猎人行径做去，虽然有点傻，有点痴，我还是要做去。他感觉地位不大妥当，赶忙把脚并拢一点，一脚拉下一点。
I followed the hunter's behavior. Although I was a little stupid, I still wanted to do it. She felt that her status was not very appropriate, so she hurriedly put her feet together a little and pulled down the corner of her clothes a little.
不敢再把那个故事看下去，因此装着怕冷，伸手向火，但在非意识情形中，却拉开了火炉门，投了3块煤。
I didn't dare to continue reading that story anymore, so I pretended to be afraid of the cold and reached out to the fire. But in the non-conscious situation, the stove door was opened and 3 pieces of coal were poured.
用那个白铜火钳搅了一下炉中炽燃烧的炭火，火是应当充分燃烧的。我就喜欢热，看完了，摇摇头，头随即低下了。
Use the white copper tongs to stir the burning charcoal fire in the furnace. fire should be burned fully. I like heat. Are you finished reading? Shaking your head. His head lowered immediately.
相互之间都觉得有点生疏而新的情感，其实混入生命中，使得人有些微恐怖。第二回摇摇头时，用意已与第一回完全不同，不再把否认和
The emotions that both of them feel a little unfamiliar and new, and they start to get into life, making people a little scary. When shaking his head in the second chapter, his intention was completely different from the first chapter. No more denial or
承认相混，却表示唯恐窗外有人。事实上，窗外别无所有，唯清雪降落而已。客人走进窗边，把窗帘拉开一小角，拂去了窗上的蒙雾，向外张望。
Acknowledge difficult to each other, but expresses fear that there is someone outside the window. In fact, there is nothing outside the window, only the light snow falls. The guest walked closer to the window, opened the curtains a small corner, and brushed away the fog on the window. Look outward.
但见一片皓白，单纯素净。窗帘垂下时，一片白把一切都遮盖了，消失了，象征上帝。房中炉火旁，其实也就同样有一片白，单纯而素净。
But I saw a white area, simple and simple. When the curtains were hanging down, a piece of white covered everything and disappeared. Symbol. God, there was also a piece of white next to the fire in the room, simple and simple.
象征道德的极致。说你的故事好，且说说你真的怎么捉那只鹿吧。好，我们好好烤火来说那个故事。我当时棒进了它。
Symbolizes the ultimate of morality. Tell me your story. Let's talk about how you really caught that deer. Okay, let's cook the fire and tell that story. I was approaching it at that time.
天知道我的心是个什么情形。我手指抚摸到它那脚上光滑的皮毛，我想，我是用手捉住了一只活生生的鹿。
God knows what my heart is like. I stroked my fingers to the smooth fur on its feet, and I thought, I caught a living deer with my hands.
还是用生命中最纤细的神经捉住了一个美的印象，极想知道，可绝不许我知道。我想起古人形容女人手美如该蚁，如春葱，如玉笋，形容罕简或富贵。
Or did you use the slenderest nerves in your life to capture a beautiful impression? I want to know, but I will never let it know. I remember the ancients described women's hands as beautiful as croakers, like spring onions, like jade bamboo shoots, and describes frugality or wealth.
总之可笑，不见过陆莹莹如诗的眼光中所表示的母性温柔的人，一定稀奇我为什么吻那个生物眼睛那么久，更觉得荒唐。
Anyway, ridiculous. I have never seen the gentle motherly nature expressed in Lu Yingying's wet eyes. I must be wondering why I kissed that creature's eyes for so long, and I feel even more ridiculous.
自然是我用嘴去轻轻地接触那个美丽生物的四肢，且顺着背脊一直吻到它那微瘦而圆的尾边。我在那个地方发现一些微妙之漩涡。
Of course, I gently touched the limbs of the beautiful creature with my mouth, and kissed it along my back to its slightly thin and round tail. I found some subtle vortexes in that place.
仿佛诗人说的藏稳的窝巢，他的颊上、脸颊上都被附上纤细的毫毛，他的颈那么有式样，他的腰那么小，都是我从前梦想不到的，尤其梦想不到。
It's like the poet's nest of kisses. Its cheeks and cheeks were covered with thin hairs. Its neck is so stylish and its waist is so small, which I never dreamed of. Especially impossible to dream of.
是他哺小鹿的那一对奶子，那么柔软，那么美。那鹿在我身边，竟丝毫无逃脱意思。它不惊不惧，似乎完全知道我对于它的善意，一句话不必说就知道。
It is the pair of breasts that it feeds the deer, so soft and beautiful. The deer was by my side and had no intention of escaping. It was not afraid or afraid. It seems that I know exactly how kind I am about it, and I know it without saying a word.
倒是我反而有点惶恐不安，有点不知如何是好。我望着他的眼睛，我们怎么办？我要从他温柔目光中取得回答，好像听到他说：“这一切有你。”不。
But I was a little nervous and a little confused. I looked into his eyes. What should we do? I want to get an answer from its gentle gaze, as if I hear it say, "It's all up to you." No, no.
一点不是，他一定想逃脱，远远地走去，因为自由，这是他应有的一点自由。是的，他想逃走，可是并不走去，因为一离开那个洞穴，全是一片雪。
Not at all. It must want to escape and walk away, because freedom is a little freedom it deserves. Yes, he wanted to escape, but he didn't walk. Because when you leave the cave, it is full of snow.
天气真冷，而且逃脱与危险感觉大有关系。目前有什么危险可言？你怎么知道他不想逃脱？如果这只鹿是聪明的，他一定要走去。是的。
It's really cold. And escape has a lot to do with the feeling of danger. What are the dangers at present? How do you know it doesn't want to escape? If the deer is smart, it must go. Yes.
他那么想过了，其所以那么想，就为的是他自以为这才像聪明，才像一只聪明的鹿应有的打算。可是我若像他那么做，那我就是傻子了。
It thought so. The reason why he thought so was that he thought he was like a smart deer, just like the plan he should have. But if I do it like it, I will be a fool.
我觉得我说的话他不大懂，就用手和嘴唇去做补充解释，抚慰他，安静他。凡是我能做到的，我都去做。到后，我摸摸他的心，就知道我们已熟悉了。
I don't think I understand a lot about what I say, so I use my hands and lips to supplement it, soothe it, and calm it. I will do everything I can. After arriving, I touched its heart and knew that we were already familiar with each other.
这自然是一种奇迹，因为我其实听到他轻轻的叹息，一只鹿为了理解爱而叹息，你不相信吗？不会有的事。是的，要照你那么说话，绝不会有。
This is naturally a miracle, because I started to hear it sighing softly, a deer, sign to understand love, don't you believe it? Things won't happen, yes, if you want to speak as you do, there will never be any.
因为那是一支路。至于一个人呢，比如说爱上帝，不说好了。我话已经说得太多了，相互沉默了一会儿。不热吗？
Because it was a deer. As for a person, for example, alas, God, I won't say it. I've spoken too much. Silence to each other for a while. Isn't it hot?
我知道你衣还穿得太多。客人问时，随即为做了些事，也想起了些事，什么都近于抽象，不是诗人说的，就是疯子说的。
I know you are wearing too much clothes. When the guest asked, he immediately did something. He also remembered some things. Everything was almost abstract. It was not what the poet said or what the madman said.
诗和火同样使生命会燃烧起来的，燃烧后便将只剩下一个蓝焰的影子，一堆灰。20分钟后，客人低声地询问：“觉得冷吗？”披上你那个。
Poetry and fire make life burn. After burning, there will be only a shadow of blue flames and a pile of ashes. 20 minutes later, the guest asked in a low voice, "Do you feel cold? Put on your one."
并从一堆丝织物中把那个细数灰披肩放到肩上去。窗帘上那个图案古怪，我总觉得它在动。事实上，他已觉得窗帘上花马完全沉静了。
And from a pile of silky matter, he put the slim rat gray shawl on his shoulder. The pattern on the curtain is strange. I always feel it is moving. In fact, he already felt that the flower horse on the curtain is completely quiet.
主人一面搅动炉火，一面轻轻地说：“我想起那只鹿，先前一时怎么不逃走？真是命运。”说的话有点近于解嘲，因为事情已经成为过去了。
While stirring the fire, the owner said softly, "I remembered that deer. Why didn't you escape for the moment? It's really fate." What he said was a bit like a ridicule, because things had become a thing of the past.
沉默继续占领这个有橘红色灯光和熊熊炉火的房间。第二天，主人独自坐在那个火炉边读一个信。咦，我好像还是在做梦。
Silence continued to occupy this room with orange lights and blazing fire. The next day, the owner sat alone by the stove and read a letter. It seems that I am still dreaming.
身心都虚飘飘的，还依然吻到你的眼睛和你的心。在那个梦境里，你是一切，而我却有了你。展露在我面前的，不是一个单纯的肉体，竟是一片光辉。
Both body and mind are empty, still kissing your eyes and your heart. In that dream, you are everything, but I have you. What is revealed in front of me is not a simple body, but a glory.
一把花，一朵云，一切文字在此都失去了它的性能，因为诗歌本来只能作为次一等生命青春的装饰。白色本身即是一种最高的道德。
A handful of flowers, a cloud. All words have lost their performance here, because poetry can only be used as a decoration for the youth of the second-class life. White itself is the highest morality.
你已经超乎这个道德名词以上。所罗门王雅歌说：“我的妹子，我的鸽子，你其源如杯，永远不缺少调和的酒。”我第一次沾唇，并不担心醉倒。
You are already above this moral term. King Iago Solomon said, "My sister, my dove, your navel is as round as a cup, and you will never lack a blended wine." I was touched by my lips for the first time, and I was not worried about getting drunk.
葡萄园的果子成熟时，饱满而壮实，正象征生命带赠予，带扩张。不采摘它，也会慢慢枯萎。我欢喜精美的瓷器，温润而莹洁。
When the fruits in the vineyard are ripe, they are full and strong, which symbolizes that life is to be given and expanded. It will wither slowly if it is not picked. I like the exquisite porcelain, warm and clean.
我昨天所见到的，实强过我20年来所见名词万千。我喜欢看那幅猿人素景，小腹平冈间有秀草丛生，做三角形，整齐而细柔，萦回于须。
What I saw yesterday is more powerful than the famous porcelain I have seen in the past 20 years. I like to see the Yuanren scenery. There are beautiful grass growing in the plains of the small hills, making triangles, neat and soft, and lingering and slow.
如云如丝，为我一生所仅见风景优秀地方。我乐意终此一生，在这个处所隐居。我仿佛还见过一个雕刻，材料非铜非玉，但绝珍贵华丽。
Like clouds and silk, I only see the beautiful scenery in my life. I am happy to live in seclusion in this place for my whole life. I seem to have seen a carving. The material is neither copper nor jade, but it feels precious and gorgeous.
稀有少见。那雕刻品腿瘦而长，小腹微凸，随即下脸，一把极合理想之线，从两股接损处展开，直到脚踝。式样完整处，如一古代希腊精美艺术的仿制品。
Very rare. The carved piece has thin legs and long legs, a slightly convex belly, and then it is restrained. A very ideal line spreads from the joints of the two strands to the ankles. The style is complete, like a copy of the exquisite ancient Greek art.
艺术品应有雕刻家的生命与尊贵情感，在我面前那一个仿之物，依据可看到神的意志与庄严的情感。这艺术品的形色神奇处。
Artwork should have the life and noble emotions of the sculptor, the imitation before me, based on the fact that God's will and solemn emotions can be seen. The magical appearance of this work of art.
也令人不敢相信，某一部分微带一片青字，某一部分有2粒小小黑痣，某一部分并有若干美妙之漩涡，仿佛可从这些地方见出上帝手艺之巧。
It's also unbelievable. A certain part has a slight green stain, a certain part has 2 small black moles, and a certain part has several wonderful vortexes, as if God's skill can be seen from these places.
这些漩涡隐现于手足关节间和脸颊颈间与腰以下，真如诗人所谓藏热吻的小杯。在这些地方，不特使人只想用嘴唇轻轻地去接触。
These vortexes appear between the hands and feet joints, as well as the cheeks, neck, shoulders, and waist, just like the poet calls a small cup that hides passionate kisses. In these places, people don't just want to touch them gently with their lips.
还幻想把自己整个生命都收藏到里边去。白荷花颈若而秀，你的颈尖和它十分相似，长颈拖着那个美丽头颅微向后仰。
I also fantasize about keeping my entire life inside. White Hawa's neck is weak and elegant, and your neck and shoulders are very similar to it. The long neck held the beautiful head slightly leaned back.
灯光照到那个白白的额部时，正如一朵白荷花欲开未开。我手指发抖，不敢攀折，为的是我从这个花中见到了神。微笑时，你是开放的白荷花。
When the light shines on the white forehead, it is like a white flower that is about to bloom but not. My fingers were trembling and I didn't dare to climb and fold, so that I saw God from this flower. When you smile, you are the blooming white flowers.
有生命在活跃流动，你沉默，在沉默中更见出高贵。你长眉微蹙，无所自主时，在清贫薄媚中所增加的鲜艳，恰恰如浅碧色白荷花带上一个小小黄蕊。
Life is flowing actively. You are silent, and you will see nobility even more in silence. When you have long eyebrows and are inactive, the brightness added to your gentle frown is just like a light green white flower with a small yellow stamen.
一片小墨斑，这一切又只像是一个抽象。第3节，这个记录看到后来，我眼睛眩冒了。这本书成为一片蓝色火焰。
A small ink spot. All this is just like an abstraction. Section 3. After seeing this record, I became dizzy. The book became a blue flame.
在空虚中消失了。我不知什么时候离开了那个房间，重新站到这个老式牌楼下。保留在我生命中，似乎就只是那么一片蓝焰。
Disappeared in the emptiness. I didn't know when I left that room and stood back down the old-fashioned archway. It seems that it is just a blue flame that remains in my life.
保留到另外一个什么地方，应当是小小的一撮灰，一朵枯干的梅花，在想象的时间下失去了色和香的生命残余。我只记得那本书上第一句话。
It should be a small pile of dust when it is kept to another place. A withered plum blossom has lost its remnants of color and fragrance in the imagined time. I only remember the first sentence in that book.
神在我们生命里，我已经回到了住处。晚上11点半，菜油灯一片黄光铺在黑色台面上，散在小小的房间中。是由木四主。
God is in our lives. I have returned to my residence. At 11:30 p.m., a yellow light of the vegetable oil lamp was spread on the black countertop, scattered in a small room. The trial tour is full of attention.
这里那里只是书，2000年前人写的，10000里外人写的，自己写的，不相识同时人写的。一个灰色小耗子在书堆旁灯光所不及处走来走去，那分从容处。
Here and there are just books, written by people 2,000 years ago, written by people from 10,000 miles away, written by themselves, written by people who don't know each other at the same time. A gray mouse walked around the pile of books without the lights. That part is calm.
正表示 它也是个生物，可是和这些生命堆积却全不相干，使我想起许多读书人10年20年在书旁走过，或坐在一个教堂边读书讲书情形。
It means that it is also a creature, but it has nothing to do with these accumulations of life. It reminds me of the situation of many scholars who have been by the books for 10 or 20 years, or sitting by a church to read and speak.
我不禁自言自语地说，哎，上帝，我活下来还应当读多少书，写多少书。我需要稍稍休息，不知怎么样一来就可得到休息。我似乎很累。
I couldn't help but say to myself, "Oh, God, how many books should I read and write when I survive? I need a little rest, and I don't know how to get a rest." I seemed very tired.
然而却依然活在一种有继续性的荒唐境界里。灯头上结了一朵小花，在火焰中开放的花朵。我心想，到火熄时，这花才会谢落。
However, he still lives in a ridiculous state of continuing nature. A small flower formed on the lamp head, a flower blooming in the flames. I thought to myself, it will only fall when the fire breaks.
正是一种生命的象征。我的心也似乎如焚如烧，不知道的是什么事情。梅花香味虽已失去，尚想从这种香味所现出的境界搜寻一下。
It is a symbol of life. My heart also seemed to be burning. I don't know what it was. Although the fragrance of plum blossoms has been lost, I still want to search for the realm that this fragrance appears.
希望发现一点什么，好像这一切既然存在，我也值得好好存在。于是在一个过去影子里，我发现了一片黄和一点干枯焦黑的东西，它代表的是他人。
I hope to discover something, as if since all this exists, I also deserve to exist well. So in a past shadow, I found a piece of yellow and a little dry and charred thing, which represents others.
生命另一种形式，或者不过只是自己另一种梦的形式，都无关系。我静静地从这些干枯焦黑的残余向虚空深处看。
It doesn't matter if it's another form of life, or just another form of myself. It's just another form of dream. I quietly looked into the depths of the void from these dry and charred remnants.
便见到另一个人在乐乐中疯狂中的种种行为，也依稀看到自己的影子如何反映在他人乐乐疯狂中和爱憎取予之际的徘徊游移中。
Then I saw another person's various behaviors in joy and madness. I also vaguely see how my own shadow is reflected in the madness of others' joy and madness, and the wandering and wandering when I like and hate.
仿佛有一线阳光印在墙壁上，仿佛有青春的心在跳跃，仿佛一切都重新得到了位置和意义。我推测，另外必然还有一本书。
It seemed as if a ray of sunlight was printed on the wall. It seems that a youthful heart is beating. It seems that everything has regained its position and meaning. I guess there must be another book.
记载的是在微扬梁丘间，一个女人对于自己美丽精致的肉体、乌黑柔软的毛发、薄薄嘴唇上一点红，白白风颊间一缕香，配上手足颈间肃静与明润。
It records that in the cool autumn of the light sun, a woman's beautiful and delicate body, black and soft hair, a little red on her thin lips, a slight fragrance between her white cheeks, and a simple and bright and moist hand, foot, neck and shoulders.
还有那一种从盈然如泪的目光中流出的温柔歌呼，肢体如同使爱与愿无可奈何的对立感到炫目的惊奇。爱，多美好神奇的生命都消失在阳光中。
There is also the gentle singing that flows out from the tears of Yingren's eyes. The body is as if it is melted, and the helpless opposition between love and resentment is dazzling and surprised. Alas, what a wonderful and magical life has disappeared in the sunshine.
遗忘在时间后，一切不见了，消失了。失去追寻时，剩余的同样是一点干枯焦黑东西。这是从自己鬓发间取下的一朵花，还是从路旁拾来的一点纸？
Forgot after time. Everything disappeared and disappeared. When I tried to pursue it, the remaining thing was also a little dry and charred thing. Is this a flower taken from my temples or a little paper picked up from the side of the road?
说不清楚。是来追究生命意义时，我重新看到一堆名词：情欲和爱，怨和恨，曲和雨，上帝和魔鬼，人和人，凑巧和相左。过半点钟后
Can't explain clearly. When trying to pursue the meaning of life, I saw a bunch of nouns again: lust and love, resentment and hatred, take and give, God and the devil, people and people, coincidentally. After half an hour,
一切名词又都失了它的位置和意义。到天明前5点钟左右，我已把一切过去和当前的经验与抽象都完全打散。
all nouns lose their position and meaning. Around 5 o'clock before dawn, I had completely broken down all the experiences and abstractions of past and current.
再无从追究分析它的存在意义了。我从不用自己对于生命所理解的方式，凝结成为语言与形象，创造一个生命和灵魂新的范本。我脑子在旋转。
There is no longer analyzing its meaning of existence. I never use the way I understand life to condense it into language and image, creating a new model for life and soul, and my mind is rotating.
为保留在印象中的造型，物质和精神两方面的完整造型重新疯狂起来。到末了，我便消失在故事里了。在桌上稿本内已写成了5000字。
In order to retain the shape in the impression, the complete shape in both material and spiritual aspects, we started to go crazy again. At the end, I disappeared into the story. In the desk manuscript, it has been written into 5,000 words.
我知道这小东西寄到另外一处去，别人便把它当成小说，从故事中推究真伪。对于我呢，生命的残余，梦的残余而已。我面对着这个记载。
I knew that this little thing was sent to another place, so others regarded it as a novel and concluded the authenticity from the story. For me, the remnant of life and the remnant of dreams. I faced this record.
热爱那个抽象，向虚空凝眸来耗费这个时间，一种极端困惑的固执，以及这种固执的延长，算是我体会到生存唯一事情。此外，一切知识与事实。
Love that abstract and spend this time gazing into the void. An extremely confused stubbornness and this stubbornness extension are the only thing I have experienced in survival and all knowledge and facts.
都无助于当前，我完全活在一种观念中，并非活在实际世界中。我似乎在用抽象虐待自己肉体和灵魂，虽痛苦，同时也是享受。
Nothing helps the present. I live completely in one concept, not in the real world. I seem to be abused by my body and soul in abstraction, although it is painful an enjoyment.
时间便从生命中流过去了，什么都不留下而过去了。是轻轻拉开房门时，天已大明，一片过去熟悉的清晨阳光随即进到了房里。
Time flows through life, and nothing leaves behind. When I tried to gently open the door, it was already bright, and the morning sun that was familiar to me in the past immediately entered the room.
斜斜地照射在旧墙上，书架前几个免氏金漆盒子在微阳光影中反映出一种神奇光彩，一切都似乎极新。但想起日光之下无心事，真是又愁又喜。
It shines obliquely on the old wall. The few Burmese gold lacquer boxes in front of the bookshelf reflect a magical brilliance in the tiny sunlight. Everything seems extremely new. But when I think of nothing new under the sunlight, I am really sad and happy.
我等待那个夜所能带来的一切，梅花的香和在这种淡淡香气中给我的一份离奇教育。居然又到了晚上10点钟，月光轻盈，楼廊间满是月光。
I'm waiting for everything that night can bring. The fragrance of plum blossoms and the bizarre education that I gave me in this faint fragrance. It was 10 o'clock in the evening again. The moonlight is clear and the corridors are full of moonlight.
因此把门打开，放月光进到房中来，似乎有个人随同月光轻轻地进到房中，站在我身后边。为什么这样自苦？究竟算什么？我勉强笑。
So open the door and let the moonlight enter the room. It seems that someone gently entered the room with the moonlight and stood behind me. Why do you suffer like this? What exactly is it? I forced a smile.
眼睛湿了，并不回过头去。我在写青凤，聊斋上那个青凤，要他在我笔下复活。从一个轻轻的叹息声中，我才觉得已过24点钟。
My eyes were wet and I didn't look back. I'm writing about Qing Feng, the Qing Feng in Strange Stories from a Chinese studio. I want her to resurrect in my pen. After a gentle sigh, I felt that it was already 14 o'clock.
还不曾吃过一杯水。
I haven't eaten a glass of water yet.